What is up, Planeswalkers? 3x6 back with some more Magic the Gathering Arena. Today we're going to be jumping into our last, at least for right now, rotation deck. This one is Abzan Midrange. As you can see, we went through a couple of iterations. We've actually went through several iterations. This deck is meant to be competitive. So recently I've been doing a lot of the, newer player style deck. This one is meant to be good. If you have any suggestion, feel more than free to give me your suggestions. Throw me your deck list. I will say I prefer deck list in the form of like links to Aetherhub. I can just read them easier. It's harder for me to like look at a YouTube comment and see that. But when I say criticism, don't like yell at me, please. No, this deck is meant to be a deck that I'm going to try and make good because I really love Abzan. I really love this color combination. This is what I prefer to play. That said, there are a lot of different ways of making green-black and a lot of different reasons to splash white. A lot of those reasons, I will say, come in the sideboard, and I'm not doing sideboard just yet. I typically will wait to figure out what I'm comfortable with in the main deck, recognize my weaknesses and strengths, and then make my sideboard accordingly. So without any more nonsense, we're going to go ahead and jump into the actual discussion of the deck. So we're running Merfolk Branchwalker as well as Jadelight Ranger because I like the minimum explore package. Now, I've seen plenty of lists, and I aggregated this list essentially from the cards that I wanted to play, a bunch of 5.0 MTGO standard lists, as well as some other lists that have just been running around discussion on Reddit and things like that. So I've seen a lot of lists running Wild Growth Walkers in the main, a lot of them running them in the side, a lot of them running at a split. I personally prefer the decks that are running about 3 in the side to bring it against aggro. And the reason for this is that Wild Growth Walker is not great against control. It's relatively weak. And I wanted to make sure that I have as few bad cards in as many matchups as possible, if that makes sense. And for that reason, I've decided to keep the good explore cards in the main deck and have, eventually, the ability to take Wild Growth Walkers out of the side to make our aggro matchup better. In addition to that, Merfolk Branchwalker and Jadelight Ranger are both fine cards. They allow us to get a little bit of card selection in terms of our draw, and can sometimes have really nice bodies attached to them. Thorn Lieutenant is kind of a really it's a great value card that scales relatively well. So in the early game, it has a really nice body to block the aggressive decks. Excuse me. And if your opponent would like to remove it, either with a lightning strike or some sort of kill spell, I'm going to get some sort of value out of it. In the later part of the game, I can also just continue to not use any of my cards in hand and register this as a threat that can deal 6 damage in a single swing. It trades up really well during those late portions of the game. It's a good clock on our control opponents where we don't have to actually add anything to the game. And if we're using this pump ability and our opponent decides to remove it in response, we don't lose out completely. We still get a 1/1 token. Obviously, that's not great compensation for 6 mana, but it is compensation when you consider the fact that our opponent lost a card. We didn't lose a body, right? So that's why I like Thorn Lieutenant here. I might end up running this as 4 of. I'm not entirely sure. It's been performing really well, so I might bump this up to 4 and potentially remove Moment of Craving. Now, Moment of Craving is essentially in the deck just to shore up our aggro matchup in the main deck. As I said, Wild Growth Walker really helps against those specific matchups, and we aren't running them in the main deck. So our aggro matchup is a little bit worse. We, of course, are running some life gain, some natural life gain in the deck, but we want to just make sure that we are not dying out of nowhere, and Moment of Craving helps. I'm running 2 Assassin's Trophy. Now, you might be asking, Theorix, why are you running 2, not 3, not 4? The reason is this card is not a removal spell that you want to play early. You don't want to ramp your opponent into something. This card is much better in the mid-range and control matchups where you're trying to get rid of essentially anything off the top of your deck, right? This is really great when you're able to target anything you want that is really giving you a hard time. You don't really want to be shooting this at a 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana card because it's ramping your opponent into a 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana card. So that's why I'm running 2 in the main. Probably would end up running 1 on the side just for those grindier mid-rangey control matchups, but I'm not entirely sure about that as of just yet. We talked a little bit about Jadelight Ranger, but I do want to address why I'm running Jadelight Ranger and not what is that card's name? District Guide. The reason we're running Ranger over Guide is because Ranger can give us more lands. They're not chosen, but it also has a variable body. I like the flexibility of Jadelight Ranger at the cost of it having a 2/1 body. So when it has a 2/1 body, right, this is only 1 toughness worse than District Guide. It's getting us 2 lands instead of 1. If it has a 3/2 body, better than District Guide, we are getting a decision about the card on top of our deck and a land in hand. Obviously, we're not choosing the land that we get, but we are getting at least a land. So it's still better in that scenario. And in the scenario where we don't get any lands, we are compensated somewhat by having a 4/3. So I like the range of options that Ranger gives us better. That said, I could definitely see myself moving into the more district guide heavy version. Jeez, I can speak words. Anyway, Knight of Autumn is a fantastic card because of the options it gives you. A lot of why I love Abzan so much is the amount of flexibility in play. So against a aggro deck, we're going to start from the bottom and go up. Against an aggro deck, we can gain for life and we can have a blocker. That's really helpful. It's really strong. Against a mid-range control deck, or sometimes even an aggro deck, right? There are plenty of enchantments, not so much artifacts, but there's plenty of enchantments that we want to destroy. Against blue-based control, there's Search for Azcanta. Against white-based, there are the Ixalan's Binding, things like that. Against red, you have Experimental Frenzy. Against black, you have Eldest Reborn. You know, there are plenty of things that you're going to be wanting to destroy, and if that presents itself, blow it up. And then, of course, if you're not low in health, your opponent doesn't have an enchantment you want to blow up, it can just be a 3-mana 4/3, which is totally fine. Shalai might seem like an odd include, but Shalai is a fine body, not amazing, but a fine body, and it protects our creatures, especially it protects our planeswalkers, and that's what's really important. This is a relatively planeswalker-heavy version. I am a man who loves him some planeswalkers, and this makes it so our opponent, specifically our mid-range control opponent, is going to have a hard time dealing with what we're doing. They have to get rid of Shalai first, find more removal, then get rid of whatever else they wanted to get rid of. So it just helps out there. In addition, very similar to Thorn Lieutenant, we are able to utilize its mana ability. It's not technically mana ability. It's activated ability in the late game to provide us with additional threat against control without using more cards. So those of you who've been around long enough may remember the green-white based decks during original Innistrad block, and how strong that helped the green-white strategies and the Abzan strategies during that time. So I really, really like Shalai. I might, like, that's the thing. There's so many ways you can build this deck. Like, Shalai works really well when you curve into Lyra, so you could technically make this like an Abzan with some Angels package, but I'm not entirely sure. I do love Shalai, but I only like her at 2. I think 3 is a little too much. And I don't want 1 because I want to see her most games. Ravenous Chupacabra is just a strong card. It destroys something, and it can block. That's, I mean, we can recur it. There are so many ways to recur in this deck. We are running through Memorial to Folly, but it's just a very nice value creature. It's like the new Necrotol is what people call it, so it's just strong. We're running a single Golgari Findbroker, and you'll notice there are a couple of one-ofs in this deck, and that's because the amount of potential recur that we have. We do have Eldest Reborn, we have Memorial to Folly, Find is fantastic, so we are able to like get something back with Findbroker, find it back plus another thing, use it again, so we only really need 1. If I do end up going the more graveyard-heavy route, I definitely see myself bumping this up to 2 or 3, but as of right now, in this specific version that doesn't put things into its graveyard on purpose, I've decided to go with 1. Maybe I should cut it out completely because we, as I said, aren't milling ourselves, but for right now, 1 seems to be fine. 2, Vraska's Contempt, because it gets rid of a pesky creature planeswalker, and it gives us life. The exile is sometimes important, for example, against Ravenous Chupacabra, against Rekindling Phoenix. Both start with R, that's why. And things like that, especially against the other Golgari decks. You know, there's a lot of recursion going on right now, so being able to just make it so our opponent can't recur a Molderhulk, can't loop their own Findbrokers, you know, that alone makes this card worth running. Find Finality is a great card. Against the more grindy matchups, you're able to just get back 2 of whatever you need. At the time, you can get back another Chupacabra, another Jadelight. You can, if you're just like against aggro, you know, double Knight of Autumn is really helpful about gaining life back. The Finality allows you to buff up one of your creatures, and against aggro or mid-range, lower and mid-range, you can either sweep their board or mostly sweep their board. It's just a very flexible card, and that's kind of something you'll see with most of the cards in this deck. They're meant to be flexible or incredibly valuable. Eldest Reborn, not great against aggro, and that's why this is only a one of. In the sideboard, I definitely see us running probably one or two more of these against the control matchups, just to make sure that their life is a living hell. Not too much to talk about this card. It's value. It does what it needs to do. 2 Golgari Queens. I'm not sold on this card in this specific build of this deck. I think Golgari Queen is better in the Llanowar Elf District Guide version that is looking to have value on their creatures early and then have those creatures not have great bodies so you don't mind getting rid of them mid to late game. That said, it does have a fine removal ability in the second one, and its ultimate, just like the other Planeswalker ultimates, are really good if you can get them, but don't plan on getting them. That said, we are running 25 lands, so if we do run like super heavy on lands, we are able to just get those to be sacrificed and draw some cards. But I might end up replacing these with Ajani, Adversary of Tyrants, and or Karn, Scion of Urza. Ajani helps our creature beatdown plan and allows us to recur some creatures, and Karn allows us to just have a really annoying game against control where we're able to accrue value or just make a bunch of bodies out of it. Izoni is another one of those one-ofs that is very strong, and that's why we're playing it, but we don't focus as much on putting stuff in our own graveyard. We don't focus as much on the recurring elements, so she may not be as strong. That said, we do still have 3 Memorial to Follies, 3 Finds, so we do have plenty of ways to reuse her. It's just the fact that we're not going to necessarily see her all the time because we aren't dumping additional copies in the graveyard of her, means that she's a little less consistent than I typically like. I could definitely see this deck going that route more, going the graveyard route more, in shooing and issuing away some of the Planeswalkers or something, but not entirely sure. Vraska's Vraska. She makes bodies, she destroys things, she kills players. I am trying to speed this up a little bit because this is getting a bit long. And then this is our mana base. We are running 3 Memorial to Follies, which sometimes can mess up our mana, especially with this number of buddy lands. I think the land situation will be better once we get Godless Shrines, the white-black ones, but the only real problem we have sometimes is when we just draw too many of the buddy lands and not enough of the shocks. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often. But with that, we're going to get in some games. Now, I did the constructed event. You might see that we have a loss here. Why did that happen? Well, we started the game. By the way, I did that a second time. I've already gone through the DeckTech, so if I sound awful, that's why. Let's see what we're going against. We are going up against Mike Man M. But when I got to the game, it was against Mono Black, and I ended up keeping a 2-land hand, which, you know, I ended up like doing fine. By the way, this is a great hand. But that game, that one game was taking 35 minutes. Like we got to the 35-minute mark before my opponent was able to kill me. They did eventually win, like I'm not gonna lie. I mean, as you can see, I got a loss. But it took like 35 minutes to get one game down, and I didn't want this video to be super long. So I was like, I'm just going to do it again. You know, in all clarity, right, I lost a game. That should be taken into account. But I wanted the video to be better. So I was like, I just bit that 30 minutes. This is a token deck, right? This is Selesnya tokens. This can pretty much only really hit what is her name? Amara? Right? I think so. So I'm going to put this in the grave. And we will attack. I'm getting kind of flooded, which is unfortunate. Right? Because I had 3 lands in my opener and I drew 3 straight in a row. No, I drew 2 in a row. Right. This was that. Dum-dum. But hopefully... Well, I mean, that said, you know, Shalai... like, we have enough mana in our hand to just make Shalai work. So... Song of Frailes. Oh, this might be a sapling deck, not necessarily a token deck. I don't see a lot of the token, like the Convoke token decks running. Okay, yeah, saplings. Sure. That seems reasonable to me. I'm going to blow something up here with Vraska. And I think, man. I think in order to save Vraska, we kill Spore Crown. But I definitely respect the argument of blowing up Song of Frailes, because our opponent could next turn play Tandish Dryad, and that would be relatively frustrating for us to deal with. Eldest Reborn doesn't get rid of much. I do think it's correct to just kill the Spore Crown, though. and then just not attack to keep her alive. I think that's reasonable. I could be wrong. Let's see what our opponent does here. Few-ish cards left in hand. Spore Swarm. Spore Swarm is not Tensure Dried, so that's fine. That said, Song of Freylies is a little bad for us. A Knight of Autumn would be great. A Assassin's Trophy would be great. Tribunal on the Vraska. Sure. Find Finality is like 1 turn slow here. Kind of. So I can Finality next turn and just wipe the face off their board. Which means blocking won't matter to me. And I can... So I can Eldest Reborn to get rid of like 1 creature. I don't think that's actually very... I don't think it's actually very strong. I think it's better to play this tapped and Shalai. And then we can buff Shalai. So it gives us... Yeah, it gives us another blocker. I think it's functionally the same. Because it allows us to block. So no attacks. It kind of protects our creatures. And we can buff this and Finality next turn. So yeah, I think this is good. And this is what I was talking about with Finality, right? It helps us really well against this style of deck. Obviously our opponent could buff, and that would suck. These do have indestructible, so they're not going to die. We don't care about blocking with Jadelight, because our plan is to just let our stuff die. Do I block with Shalai? And risk losing Shalai? I do have right, I don't have Find, because I'm going to get rid of it. I think I do. I think it's reasonable to do so. I could be super wrong, but yeah, it turned out to be fine. They only got through for 2 damage. I would like them to play more things here. Thank you. That's an instant. My opponent should have waited, right? There's no reason really for my opponent not to wait here. I'll pay 2 life, and we start by attacking with Shalai, because otherwise Shalai is going to deal less damage. I could attack with Thorn Lieutenant too. Guess I might as well. Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We're still just gonna Finality. We don't want our opponent to... Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I could have technically buffed with Shalai and made that like a terrible block for our opponent, but we're pretty much doing this every time. Because it just wipes the board so well. Our opponent's down to 2 cards in hand. 1 is a land. They have 1 card. They have a Sap Herd. Sure. Right. I can Eldest Reborn if I want. And I got another Finality, so I can even buy stuff back. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna Vraska away this Conclave Tribunal. And this is really like what we want from this deck. There's just a ton of value. We can even use... Yeah, cool. This is what the deck's supposed to do. It's supposed to get sweet, sweet value. And just win. Cool, cool. And this one didn't take 30 minutes to do. Right, we're still at the 18-minute mark, so I'm able to hopefully get in 2 more games. Definitely 1, but it might be long. Right, the reason I'm doing the constructed events is because I got a few people saying that they would prefer constructed events, and no one's saying that they would prefer ladder, I don't think. So, we're going to try and do constructed events from now on. That said, at some point, my rotation decks are like all going to be just like best of 3s, because those are like the decks that I want to actually be good, right? So, green-black zombies. This is an interesting hand. Huh. A lot of, like, kind of too much land and no white makes me hesitate. But I don't need to play Folly on 1. I could play Cemetery into Swamp. And I do have Thorn Lieutenant. The problem is I don't really have Knight of Autumn. I don't have a great follow-up. But, like, all of the cards in our deck are, like, good. And we don't run too many white cards, so the likelihood of getting more unplayable is not high, so I'll keep. It's not a strong keep. This is a really soft keep, but I think it's fine. And we're going to Cemetery first because of the fact that we're not using the Swamp for anything on turn 1, so. Alright, sure, we're just going to play the Thorn Lieutenant. Drawing a land is bad. Drawing a black-green land is worse. Like, if this was any, like, literally any other land except for Memorial to Folly, I mean, yeah, like, it's just not the best land. Blue-red, probably Drakes. So yeah, they used a card. I still have a body. Right. Chupacabra is nice. It does mean I will be able to destroy one of their Drakes, which is what I assume this deck is. Overgrown Tomb can come in untapped, so I think Memorial to Folly is the better drop here. See what our opponent does. Oh, right. Green-black zombies. Sultai Muldrotha. Grixis Control. And this. I have a lot of black decks. I have a lot of green-black decks. I mean, that really just shows the colors I prefer to play. I'll go and attack first. I assume that they're going to ionize my Jadelight Ranger. But it's not too bad. Yeah, they might ionize this. I can just, like, Findbroker it or something. Yeah. That's fine. So this is Counterburn? This might be the Izzet Control deck I've been seeing? Where it's, like actual just, like, counters and burn spells? Possibly? Possibly? I think I have Thorn Lieutenant. I don't think I need to Findbroker just yet. They could have Syncopate, which would suck, but I'd rather them Syncopate this than, like, Findbroker, so. I mean, that's really why Thorn Lieutenant is so strong. Because, yes, I've not done a ton of damage, but, like, this is still pesky, right? I'm still pinging them every turn. Like, I'm still getting some value here from my first Thorn Lieutenant. 5 mana. This could be a Niv Mizzet deck, which is fine, because we have Chupacabra. We have another Chupacabra, right? So, one more land, and I could just, like, start using Thorn Lieutenant and, like, not adding anything. I don't think I go for 4, 3. This is a 5-turn clock. 5 turns is probably too long. So I guess Findbroker's fine here. Gonna Findbroker out the Jadelight. Sure. I don't love this play. I think it's fine. Like, they have to use their counterspells at some point. They didn't counterspell my Thorn Lieutenant. They might kill my Thorn Lieutenant? No? Alright, sure. So yeah, I mean, we got value here. We're totally fine. Maybe they have a Wrath effect that I'm not thinking of? I have no idea. Chemist's Insight end of turn, potentially? No, they had nothing. So, I mean, our opponent needs to do something. We have them on a 3-turn clock. A Niv Mizzet here is not very strong because I can just Chup. Fight with fire? Sure. Like, they had to use a strong card to get rid of half of a card, right? Like, this got us another card. So, I'm gonna go ahead and attack. And I can just Memorial to Folly and just get this back, right? Like, it's not technically a full card. I do think I'm just gonna Jadelight Ranger. Hopefully I can get some more mana. Hopefully I can get some white mana. I don't need it, but it would be nice. And we'll Jadelight. Opponent could counter this if, like, at this point I don't think they have counters. But let's see what we get out of Jadelight. They might shock it in response to make sure it doesn't grow past what they can deal with. Shivan Fire, yeah, functionally the same. I think that's a reasonable play, honestly. Right, yeah. It wouldn't have grown anyway. But let's go and play the Sunpetal Grove. We could Knight of Autumn. That would take us to 4, 7. That'd take us to a 2-turn clock, which is very nice. They only have 3 cards left. The sweeper of choice for red right now, I think, is the, like, Buccaneer card, whatever it is. I'd like to put 2 counters. It's the pirate one. 2 in a red, instant, deal 2 damage to every non-pirate creature. So they would have to use, like, 1-for-1 removal, which is fine. Because at this point, I can just use Thorn Lieutenant to just murder my opponent. Yeah, I mean, they use Fight with Fire again, right? They have 2 cards left. I don't like this deck. I do think this is the red-blue control deck, and it's just, like, not doing what they need it to do. This buffs up to... I mean, I could just... attack, let's see, attack for 3. I feel like I would rather Memorial to Folly and Night of Autumn. Yeah, I think I like that line better. Night of Autumn plus Memorial to Folly on Findbroker. End of turn. Yeah, I think that's technically a more reasonable thing. And like, look, I just have three removal spells. Like, if my opponent tries to kill me with a creature, like, they're gonna be hard pressed to do it. Yeah. Awesome. Can I squeeze in a third game? Ooh, maybe. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So let's see. I right now in the rotation, I have green-black zombies, Sultai Moldrata, and Abzan Midrange. Grixis Control is like the outlier. Going up against Wolo. The Sultai Moldrata deck is a heavy into milling itself. The green-black zombies deck, I guess, is as well. This is a fine hand. We have an activator in the Shocklands, some lands, Jadelight Ranger. Technically, we have Assassin's Trophy. We don't really have anything on turn 2, which means going second is not great, but it's fine. It's possible we should be running more 2-drops. Hey, look, we got a 2-drop. So we are going to be able to play something on turn 2, which is very nice. Yeah. Discovery, all right. This is looking like mono black, though. Swamp. Nope, it's blue-black. Oh, they got rid of both of those. Interesting. So their hand must have plenty of mana in it, or else it's not a great. Let's stop doing that. I don't need any more lands deck. I'm technically good on lands. It's possible this deck should be running 24. Not entirely sure, but feel free to let me know what you're doing in your green-black or Abzan deck. Night of Autumn is great here against disinformation campaigns. I do assume this is going to get countered. Maybe I just assume everyone's running control spells. That's not what I expected. So that's awkward. We're going to drop a forest. Cast down, sure. We want both the memorials because we're able to like utilize them for value. So let's see what our opponent has. Thought Eraser. I have no idea. I don't know what's in their hands. I don't know exactly what they're playing, so I don't know what they're going to take. Potentially Night of Autumn. Potentially. Like, we have 3 removal spells for creatures. Yeah, they chose Night of Autumn. I think that's reasonable. Got another Branchwalker, which is nice. Yeah, I'm just gonna cast it. I'm gonna go ahead and keep that on top. I did give my opponent information before attacking, but I think it's fine. And we'll do that. We don't technically need to use Assassin's Trophy just yet, so. Field of Ruin. It's kind of lame. My opponent could feel... Yep. That's a good play for my opponent. They're just deciding to get rid of our land and saying, do you want that Shalai, or do you want, like, to not lose out on mana? Is that not a May? I couldn't choose? That's a strong effect. I'm actually annoyed that I couldn't choose. Alright, fair. Campaign, sure. Going to drop a land. Am I going to drop land? What's in my grave? Jadelight, Night of Autumn. It resolves, sure. I'm going to drop a Sunpetal Grove. And I do think trophying campaign is fine here. We're at the point where, like, they can probably cast anything in their deck anyway. I got a find. That's very nice. So I can just get both of those back now. I think I will. Hit them for 5. It's unlikely that Finality is going to play a role in this game. We're just going to go ahead and get these, which makes me happier about getting rid of the land because Jadelight Ranger can potentially get us back there. So, no, we have decent pressure on our opponent. Field of Ruin, go away. I mean, that's fine. Sure. We do have a Findbroker somewhere. Let's get a Forest. Our opponent's not like the Field of Ruining. I mean, like they're not doing anything. Price of Fame, sure. Sure. They do get to surveil. See what they put. Alright, they didn't put anything in. So they kept both on top. But we don't know what order they put them in. Don't know why you're having me do that. Two lands, holy crap. I think I'm gonna keep Knight of Autumn. Like, they probably have a Ritual of Soot, so there's not really a reason to play into that. Way too many lands, deck. Way too many lands. Sure. I'll go ahead and just do this. I need to try and kill them quickly. I'm not sure about that play, because it does technically play into Ritual of Soot. Doesn't matter, they have Contempt. That said, like, they're down to 2 cards. I mean, sure. I have Chupacabra. And Shalai, which is very nice. Do I Shalai first? Because they might have a counterspell. They know about the Chupacabra, though, right? They thought erasured when we had Chupacabra in our hand. So they do know about Chupacabra. So I think it's better to Chup first. Because if Chup doesn't resolve, then we can just Contempt this. Okay. So they're just going to surveil. I think that's reasonable. Just got to pay attention to what goes in. Okay, they kept both on top. We'll go ahead and kill that. Ritual of Soot doesn't kill both of, or like all of our creatures. Like it doesn't kill Chupacabra or Shalai. So I think I'm fine playing Shalai. They might have specifically Syncopate, but they only have 1 card, and they haven't been playing counterspells. So I think this is the version that doesn't run counters. So they kept both on top. They have a Memorial of their own. Yeah, so this destroys 1 creature. So our opponent is not dead, but they're damn near close. Yeah, I just activate this. Oh no, they are dead. Cool. Look, I don't feel like doing math, okay? I had math class today, stats class, and it was great. We did some sweet factorial ANOVAs. Advanced. It's awesome. All right, so, okay, cool, yeah. Deck is performing relatively well for our first outing. Our first large outing. I did do some practices with it, and it was doing fine. Quasi-duplicate. I'm sure there's a meme there somewhere that people are going to ask me to play. Speaking of asking me to play, feel free to suggest decks that you'd like to see, be them memes or competitive. Either way, I don't mind. I'm not necessarily going to be able to get to them because of various reasons, but I would like to thank Easy Mode, Dizzyfam, Radberry, Kyoshin, Ox, Daniel, Flowerchild, Chow83, Zaraga, and another patron who has yet to respond to my things, so I'm just going to call him Mad right now. Their support on Patreon allows me to continue making the stuff you guys would like to see. If you'd like to join them supporting the channel, you'll find links to that in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, and cast a comment in the comment section down below. And until next time, all will be one.